Welcome, Jennifer. It is really wonderful to have you here. I'm Tina Feigal, and Jennifer is the mom of a teenager who really wanted to talk about kids and screen time and the issues that she's been hearing not only in her own life but from other people. So, Jennifer, just give us a little bit of background about what's going on and what you're hearing.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Tina. Just as a mother of a 14-year-old boy, I could really feel, kind of in the thick of the video gaming and trying to manage that. And he's just about to go into high school, being that it is fall and the kids are going back to school. So I'm just have been working on trying to manage myself and him in the video gaming, and what that's going to look like going forward, going into high school.
And when you say manage yourself, what are you exactly saying?
Well, as I've learned when I've been parenting and worked with you, Tina, over the years, that a lot of what goes on in my parenting isn't really about Alec, and I comfortable saying Alec, but just how I deal with it, how what kind of quality of life do I want to have in parenting my teen, and what I want that to look like for myself.
Beautiful, beautiful. What kind of pitfalls have you seen happen already, if you don't mind sharing?
Guilt, a lot of guilt, sadness, questions, fights with him, just arguments about what's normal, what's not normal, what's okay, but I think, guilt is the easiest to fall into.
Because you have overreacted to things, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I've overreacted. We'll go out to dinner, invite him to come out to dinner. Of course, he doesn't want to. He wants to stay and play the video games. And so, sometimes managing that and letting him stay home and do what he wants. And then, being out to dinner with my husband and feeling guilty or, being preoccupied that we're out to dinner and he's not with us, or I didn't make him come with us, or, it's kind of, I could have him come with, but then he's miserable.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's
a catch-22, isn't it?
Yes. So I just try to balance that.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So what other issues have you heard from other parents about this kind of thing? Are they feeling guilty too, like they're not being good parents and that they should be doing something differently than what they're doing?
Yeah. I mean, I just have tried to really, kind of search for an answer for myself. And again, it's come out of, wanting to have a happy life. I want my son to be happy and, do what he wants to do. And I want my life to be happy. I don't want to be angry all the time. I don't want to feel guilty all the time. And so I've just really searched out. I've always kind of been that seeking type of parent to search out kind of answers. And so, I've done some with the electronics at home. I have updated a router. We found a really great router where I can control some of the times of the Xbox or his laptop, from my phone. And so that's been very helpful. I do use the parent controls on his iPhone. And so like right now, everything is shutting down at midnight for him. So, things like that have been helping me to manage, just his time on it and then my feelings around it too.
Mm-hmm. And which router did you find?
It's by Linksys, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the model number for you, but I can get that for you. But yeah, it has an app on my phone, and it recognizes every device in the house. So I can go to bed because I have to work in the morning at 10, where he would be staying up, and I can have everything go off at midnight. And we've even gone now and investigated with DirecTV and they have parental settings with times, and so that I can even have the TV go off. So, this has been a process for me. I let him be up, and then I took back the times, and then I said, well, I'll turn off the Xbox and his laptop and his phone, and he can watch TV to fall asleep. But then he was staying up too late doing that, so I had to have the TV go off then as well. And he's really not fighting it. It seems to be going, okay, that just everything is shut down. And it doesn't have to shut mine off, or it doesn't have to shut off the internet to the house. I mean, total transparency, I like to watch Netflix or something on my iPad. So that was always my trouble before, was, managing the devices and, wanting to limit his, but maybe I don't want to limit mine. I'm an adult. So
Right.
So that's been very helpful.
And what do you think helped Alec to accept the fact that this was going to be the limitation now?
Well, it's another part that I've struggled with, because, I do believe that a certain extent at 14, he doesn't know what he wants, and so I think he wanted some boundaries, and the only way really that I know that he really wanted the boundaries is because he's not really fighting it, that everything gets shut down at midnight. He might have squawked a little bit about it, but he's really just kind of going with it. And so, it's just one of the things that I've tried, and he didn't really fight.
That's wonderful. And I think that what's underneath that is that kids really do want their parents to put some limits on their behavior. When they don't have the brain development yet to just stop at a certain time, it makes him feel secure that you're taking control.
Yes, and I really feel like I don't blame Alec. I have a lot more compassion for him. I don't think that he's choosing to do this. I have a little bit in my own mind put it in the framework of an addiction. I don't mind sharing that I've been in AA, and so I'm familiar kind of with that addiction model. It makes sense to me. So if I put it in that framework where I know these gaming companies use the algorithms to keep it going, to keep the kid enticed, it does the brain thing where they get the rewards, and it's a loop, and some of those things, I have done a little bit of reading on it. It's helped me have more compassion for Alec. I don't think that he's just being like a defiant teen on the games. I really believe he can't come off of the games. And so that's helped me, maybe not take things personally. When he would not come off of the game, I would take it personally. I would get hurt feelings if he didn't want to come to dinner with us and those sort of things. So it's putting it in that framework for me has helped, because I feel like I'm afraid that it's going to be like the cigarette story, which is they were selling us cigarettes. Everybody was smoking at a certain time. They knew that there was health implications, and they didn't tell us.
Right.
And I'm afraid that it's going to be the same thing, that they program the games and the computers and the phones to be continuous so that people want to be on them all the time. And obviously it's working for the kids and adults. And at some point we're going to find out that it is damaging, and that it is unmotivating for kids. So it's helped me just put it in a different framework where I feel a little less guilty. It empowers me a little bit more to set some of those limits. I mean, I have felt really powerless with this. I know a lot of parents, their kids get aggressive and angry. And Alec does too. He does get a little bit aggressive, but he's more so What I find is that, like, I took him to Duluth recently, and about 2 or 3 hours into the trip where he was being prickly, he kind of broke down and cried a little bit. Like, we, kind of were, I was challenging him and whatnot, and he finally had some tears, and then Alec was present. So I feel like, I think it takes some time for these kids to decompress when they come off the games after they've been on for a long time. And if I can stick with it, with him long enough past that time, I think he really becomes present. But I think that it does take some time to get your kid back after they've been on for hours, which mine does. I mean, I'm not going to say he doesn't, and I think it's a big shame area for parents to really admit how much time our kids are on the video games. And so, it's a lot. It's more than what they say it should be. And I'm a pretty laid back parent. I know other parents are maybe just wired differently than I am or whatever, and they're engaged in the daily fight with the kids in the electronics. I'm just not really wired that way, but I think it's really important that parents not feel horribly guilty, know that this is like a real thing, and if it helps them to put it kind of in the addiction mode, I mean, their brains are addicted for sure. I mean, even if it's just an uncomfortable word, obviously, I think most parents can see that their kids are addicted. And then, what does that mean then? Like, I've had to say, okay, if I just accept that word in that model, what does that mean then? How can I help him, going forward, and how to manage that? And, I really, that day we went to Duluth, I really did sit him down and said, there are doctors, there are books out that I have now that I've read where, they're pinpointing the kids want to socialize less. What does it give them? It gives them, that success, they can go up a level all the time and they can feel confident and get successes. And it also like fills a loneliness thing. So there are payoffs that the kids are getting. And he seemed to respond to the fact that it's documented. There's things in books. It's a real thing. I don't blame him. I don't think there's something wrong with him. And that he's not the only one. I mean, they're quoting hundreds of millions of kids and people, suffering from this now. And he seemed to feel better, like, it wasn't only him, and that it just was a real thing. It wasn't just that he was naughty or that something was wrong with him. Why can't you get off of these games? Why am I calling you down for dinner and you're not coming? Those sort of things. I just think it could really instill in him that there's something wrong with him. And I really have come to the point where I'm not blaming him anymore. I don't want him to think there's something wrong with him. I mean, I really think that the kids are the victims here of the gaming programmers, and it just seemed a lot easier for me to deal with it if I didn't think that there was something wrong with my kid.
Beautiful, beautiful. And when you included him in the conversation, it sort of sounds like that was a breakthrough for the two of you. Is that right?
I think so. He kind of was like, oh, really? I did try to say like a really big number, like hundreds of millions. I don't know but it's obvious. I mean, right? It's like, It's a real thing. And so, yeah, he did seem to respond to that something's going on here and you're not to blame. And, it's documented, it's written about, there's doctors, I said, well, what if it was this? What if it was this gaming kind of addiction thing that makes you not want to play with anybody this summer? You know, you're in your room, you're isolating some. You know, what if that wasn't really like just something that you wanted, but a symptom of the gaming that tends to make the kids want to isolate and be alone and feel anxious? You know, it did kind of feel like it answered something for him as well. Like, oh, well, maybe that's why I feel that way.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So what you're saying here is that shared insight with your child can really actually change his perspective, you know, and he's at 14, he's not too young to get this. It's pretty wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know that I don't think that there's anything wrong with the kids.
Right.
You know, as a parent, you feel like you're failing because what we're up against, these algorithms or whatever you want to call it, that we're up against, it's a real thing. And like, I don't think we can really win this one. Like, I mean, I think not that we can't win it, but I think we're going to have to go at it at a different angle.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, we're going up against like cigarette addiction. You know, is just somebody bugging somebody to quit smoking? Is that really going to work to make that person quit? No, it's not. And then that adult or that parent is having kind of a crummy life. I mean, you don't feel close to your kid. You feel like you're failing. You know, it's just really heartbreaking to the parent. And, you know, I don't want the parent to feel like there's anything really wrong with them either. I think we really are in something here, and, you know, it's not, you're a bad parent. And the amount of time got away from everybody. What turned into 1 or 2 hours on the computer, maybe during the school year, when summer came around, it's 8 or 10 hours or 12 hours. I mean, let's just say what it really is. You know, if you're going to bed or the adults are working and the kids are home, it's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he's not old enough to have a job, but he's too old for any daycares.
Yeah.
You know, so he's home and I'm at work.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I can manage quite a bit off the app on my phone, but unless you're standing there hovering over them, you can't really, you know, control it. And I don't want to live like that. I don't want to be angry with him all the time.
Right.
And stuff. So I've just had to change a lot.
And I think what you alluded to before, which was including him in the thought process that you're having, that is really the key. If you don't mind, I'm just going to share a note from another mom who actually sent this to me yesterday. The timing couldn't be better. I have obscured their identities on this, and she said that I could use this for our recording today. I asked her when her daughter was sneaking her computer to bed with her the previous 2 nights. And I mean, that was the reason she called, was that she needed help with too much screen time with her daughter. And so she said, she wrote me this note, and she said I could read it. Hi, Tina, thank you so much for the resources you've been sending. I really appreciate it. I'd like to send you one of my successes ahead of schedule, if you don't mind, because when I coach parents, I ask for 3 successes at the beginning of each session. So she's writing this to me because it was on her mind and she wanted to share. The night we talked, same day I discovered Sophie had been sneaking her computer to bed with her the previous 2 nights, I told Sophie her electronics were going to be taken away, but I wanted to talk to her about technology and what had been happening, and after we talked, I would reconsider her electronics. So not too long after she came to me to talk, if rather grumpily. The first thing I said was, so Sophie, do you feel like we're trying to control you with your technology? Yes. Does it feel like kind of an insult to you? Yes, it does. She'd been laying on the kitchen bench across the table from me, but was now kind of propping herself up and meeting my gaze. We then had a discussion where I used a lot of your advice from our earlier talk, like telling her I didn't really blame her for her deception because it's something a lot of kids do, but I wanted to have a different kind of relationship with her, and telling her why she wasn't ready to manage electronics herself yet. Too addictive, prefrontal cortex in the brain not mature yet, which is the part of the brain where we learn from our past mistakes and we control our behavior based on what happened before, and so on. She had a ready counter about why she should be allowed. She should have more independence, be allowed to fail, etc. I listened, and I said, I love that you want that. But I told her good parents who love their kids help their kids with this the way we helped them since they were little, with feeding them when they were infants and helping them cross the street safely and holding their hand when they were learning to walk and making sure they had a roof over their heads and making sure that they got to school and making sure that they had help with their homework and all the supplies they needed and making sure they learned how to swim and all the things that parents do to love their children until the children are old enough to take the reins on their lives themselves. In the end, I agreed she could have more independence with homework, where John and I would try out not checking on her plan every day and throughout the night, and whether she was getting everything done. She'd take responsibility. But she agreed she'd do her work with computer facing out so we could easily see it and help her stay on task. We'd walk by at intervals, and as parents, would still have rules about bedtime, nutrition, general health, and safety. And no electronics after bedtime, of course. When done, I said, okay, we can be done now. Did you think that was a good talk? And she said, yes. 3 exclamation points and a smiley face. After that, the softening came back, as I had seen before. And this is what I say is like when you include kids in the conversation, when you say to them, I see you, I see you, I see you, by asking the kinds of questions she asked. Does it feel like an insult? That's an I see you. Then the softening comes. So after many steps, we got a step forward once again. So appreciative of your wisdom and approach. It feels like what has been missing for a long time. Sincerely, Tammy.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's just like talking to kids as humans rather than just, I'm going to set these limits, you're not going to have a computer after this time of night, actually engaging them and addressing how they feel and not blaming them, as you have said several times, Jennifer, and not acting from guilt as a parent, but acting from proactive, like this is what we're going to do to make this better kind of feeling, can just make all the difference. And
yeah, I mean, a lot of mine, and I think maybe I can speak for parents, is it's out of fear. I mean, we're really afraid.
Yes.
I don't think we know what we're doing. We don't know what we're up against here. This is new. I think this generation of kids coming through is probably, it's a little bit different.
It is.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of it's fear we're doing it wrong, fear that we're responsible, that we lost them, at some point and, lost control of the number of hours.
Yes.
And I really liked what the mom wrote, Tammy wrote, because of that softening. To get to that softening, though, it's almost like not talking to somebody when they're drunk, and really you have to wait till, they're kind of back in their right mind. And that might look different for everybody, but it's getting to that softening point.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe it is the connecting and talking and seeing them that they'll soften. Yes. And, not that something's wrong with them, or how can they be so lazy and be on the computer for the 10th hour today? And why don't you want to get up and go to the park or go ride your bike?
Right.
No, they don't want, they don't want to go do those things. Is it natural? Is it innately in them that they don't want to go do those things? I don't really think so. I
No.
think the gaming and the algorithms and the whatever condition the brain and everything gets in after some hours on these is, kind of zaps that
It
for them.
does. It does. And I just have to tell you, I so appreciate your coming on here and making this recording with me and sharing your personal experience with Alec and caring about other parents too, to show that there's a way to handle these things with the electronic controls and then also with the connecting with the child. Those two things combined can be golden to really help kids actually walk away from the computer and live their lives instead of living it through an addictive game. So I just thank you so much, Jennifer. We're going to wrap up now, and I really, really, I love seeing you, and I really appreciate your time and your idea to do this with me. So thank you so
Yeah,
much.
no, I appreciate it, and thanks for listening. And like I said, I've known you maybe 15 or more years now, so I know it was with one of my older kids when I met you. So it's great to connect.
Really is. Thank you so much. You take care.
You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.